There were incidents where the whole team, during these sessions, were located to the other side of the room. And not only that, the chairs they were sat on the table were in between them. And you just switched on, and eventually you realised, what we're doing on the other side of the room, how did we even get here? You know, I mean, it was just absolutely crazy, the stuff that was going on. The items were, and there was a table that was spanned so fast, there was nobody in touch with it. This is not idiomotor stuff where you've got fingers on the table and you might be accidentally moving it. No, this was not in physical contact with anybody, and the damn thing started tipped up onto one leg and spanned so fast, it was a blur. In fact, it was so worrying and terrifying, because if you came into that contact with a table, it could take your head off. It was spinning that fast.
Welcome. I'm here again with Steve Mera. Steve, welcome back, man.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me back, Sean. It's been interesting times. Lots of things going on in the world.
Yeah, and it's probably going to continue to get interesting for a while. But
I do believe so. Yeah, I really do. I think we are on that spiral, and it's just heading downwards. You know, I don't think there is enough momentum now that is going to be change. I just know there's going to be change. There's going to be things coming out over the next 24 months. I know what's going to be coming out over the next 12 months, which is shocking enough, but it's going to be a bit of an eye-opener. People are going to have to seriously start to digest change in their lives, about the concepts and understanding of reality and what's going on around us, and how it's been manipulated and used by the hierarchy for many, many years in their own favour. But it's crumbling, Sean. People are working behind the scenes, separate away from the US governments and other governments around the world, because they've all been at it, but they are independents. And they are doing it independently in research teams, and we're talking quantum mechanics engineers, we're talking physicists, astrophysicists, specialists from all various different organisations and establishments working on this. And now they peek behind the curtain, and once you look behind that curtain, this is the big thing. And this is what is going to be interesting, because we've got to get our heads around this somehow. You know, we've got to consider throwing away the aspects of our strong belief system in religion and economy and all sorts of different things. We've got to try and get ahead on this. And we're going to have to. We can't ignore it. Once it's out, it's out. So I do know there's some strange and some wonderful things coming forward, which is going to start causing some concerns for that hierarchy. Because, like I say, the time over for them to just hold this to their chest and you manipulate it and utilize things for themselves is coming to an end. And that's what's going to be interesting.
by the way, you got cut off the moment you said behind the curtain.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
So can you repeat from behind the curtain again? Sorry.
Yeah, there are specialists all over the world, some of which are working for 3-letter departments and doing a little bit secretly, which are unaware about some other stuff, and they're seeing behind the curtain. They know that there's a big charade, and that is life. That is reality. You know, even the reality that we see, perceiving it, is a charade, because reality is constructed within the brain. Colour even constructed in the brain. Everything. We know how phenomena can manipulate us, make us perceive things differently, deceive us, to the point where they'll enforce perception upon us, which affects the human brain. We can see scarring of that, which shows evidence of it. We are the puppets on the string. You know, no matter how many people I've talked to, we are never going to get ahead on this, because the phenomena, and I say phenomenon, not phenomenon, because people used to always, Steve, it's phenomenon, not phenomenon. No, it isn't. It is phenomenon, because everything it is associated with. We've got to start considering, why does phenomena have godly power? Why does it predate even religions all around the world? And at that point, we've got to consider, have we misinterpreted God?
To advertise on Through a Glass Darkly, email throughaglassdarkly@gmail.com.
Have we, all the gods, not just our God, not just the Christian God, but all gods around the planet, is it phenomena delivering something to gain what it wants? Yes, it seems so. Even prior to the basis of the constructions of religion, we're stuck in this system, and we've got to shed ourselves of this to sort of see through the veil and find out, okay, there is something here, it's in charge. It has godly power, so what is it? Is it God? I mean, people would hate for us to say that, but what is God? What is real? Because people are always asking me, and I say, well, what is real? Surprisingly, not a lot is real in the proper physical sense. Reality isn't real. We can bend reality, we can manipulate it. We have done, humans have done this, we've done it through experiments. Manipulated reality. How can we even make change in reality if it's not pliable? There's a mechanism at play. It's a construction. It's a very clever construction, a bit like a program, which is designed to recognize and change things. It's like a program within a program within a program. If this happens, do this protocol. If that happens, let's do that. Sometimes there's maybe even a little bit of a reset that goes on in people's lives. It's those glitches, strange coincidences, synchronicities, things that might be identifiable through those glitches in life. It's just like, whoa, what's going on here? We live in the box. To try and get a good understanding about what is happening here, we have to be outside the box like NHI are. But we're not. We're stuck in a box. We can't deal with it whilst we're in it. We've got to learn how to sort of get out of it. And believe me or not, there are ways of getting out of it. There are ways of getting out of this matrix through NHI. You can stare in and you can see the matrix, see what's going on, how people are manipulated, how life is constructed, and how they can make these changes in the reality that we think. I mean, we know about the double slit experiment or dual slit experiment. We know that when waveform collapses, when we watch them, we look at identify things. Because there's a conscious connection. It knows. Even when we're looking at UFOs in the sky, once we look at one, we know there's change in it. The phenomena knows that it's being observed and can interact when it wants to interact. But then people think, oh, well, you know what? I'll go and stick a video camera up. Don't matter. You go and stick a video camera up on a tripod and film it. You don't even need to be there. The waveform will still collapse because it knows the intent for you while you're filming. Because you're going to film it, it's clever enough to know, I'll carry on with the waveform collapse. You can stick a chimpanzee in it. Any other animal on this planet, and the waveform won't collapse. It is only for us. Doesn't affect them, and it affects us. So you know that we are purposely tied to this matrix, this design. And as more research is being done, we're discovering not just the dynamics of this and how big it is, because it just goes on and on and on into the universe, is that we can see through quantum mechanics now, the mechanism. We can see how it interacts, and we can see how it interacts with people even interested in phenomena. It's different. It monitors, it evolves, it learns. And what a system this is. It's quite incredible. But whatever was responsible for doing it must have godly power. I mean, we look at all these different variations in phenomena, and you think, how does it do that? It's like godly power, It can do anything. Absolutely anything. There is no, even phasing through solid matter is not an issue for it. The US government knew that years ago. This is why two-star General Albert Stubbenbein started the project of trying to phase. So that, humans could phase through walls and stuff. They built, they did that film, didn't they? Staring at goats, wasn't it? But the thing is that the principles of that work went right up to the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories and NHI communications, where two things happened. The ability to be able to have one item, which they were utilizing, to be physical 1 minute and non-physical the next, and you could not visually tell the difference until you come to pick it up, of course. Your hand had passed right through the damn thing. Maybe slight micro layer of something around the fingers as it passed through, but you don't feel anything. There's no coldness. Some people it's just physical for. And then some items, which also corresponds with some metamaterials, that some people can handle them, and other people that will just turn to dust.
Yeah, say more about that. What is that about?
Well, the thing is that there are certain experiments that are tied between human consciousness and the metamaterials themselves. Now, we do know that some of these metamaterials, if not most of them, have unique properties, and by utilizing certain frequencies, usually within the terahertz frequency range, you can cause these metamaterials to act differently, lose weight, become invisible to the naked eye, or 43% of it initially was changing its aspect. But some of these, which are, they're obviously physical, you think, okay, I can just pick these things up. Well, yes, people can, but some people can't. Some people come into physical contact with some of this stuff, it'll just turn to dust. It'll just disintegrate. Because there's a significant difference between somebody's consciousness about the acceptance of phenomena and how phenomena wants to act or react with individuals and not others. This is why you have to use certain people in certain experiments and others not. And they've learned a process of this because of its an elimination process, because not everybody is achievable for it. This is why when you have seance circles, there's got to be a certain amount of people which the phenomena wants to connect with. If it doesn't, it's not going to work. The results are very, very poor. We always want to bring in scientists. Yeah. But the phenomena doesn't like it. The phenomena wants you to be a believer. The phenomena wants you to be an experiencer. Oh, yes. It'll connect with you in a way that even physicalities around you within this matrix that we live in will act differently with you if they want that to. Which means that sometimes you can't come into physical contact with things. Sometimes some people can. It's different for different people depending on what their belief is and what the phenomena reaches out to. And this is what they found. And this is why the experiments became very personal. In-house personal experiments, because some people are just better. Hence, he only used certain people in remote viewing and others didn't. And Albert Stubbenbein wanted to get into the phasing technique so much because he knew that through the process of just Scientology itself, Church of Scientology teaches you, the story is, in Scientology, which you learn, that there are billions, if not trillions, of souls of NHI cast to Earth, which is the same story as the fallen angels, into the Earth, not onto Earth, but into the Earth, which raptured, and they settled themselves embodiment within humans.
This is the Thetans.
The Thetans, exactly the same story, Thetans. But they believe they can purge themselves because they know NHI they're in control of reality and they can manipulate it easily. They can even walk through solid items because it's a construction, They believe that they can purge themselves of that embodiment, that they can also have the same abilities as NHI and to manipulate their own reality. That's why the whole process of Scientology can go up all these levels, to achieve that pure will, having pure will, which means that you've cast everything out from yourself, that embodiment. You've got rid of it, but what you're left with is the same capabilities of what NHI can do, is manipulate your reality.
This is kind of how, L. Ron Hubbard, when you say will, L. Ron Hubbard spent a lot of time with Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons was linked in some ways to Aleister Crowley, who, what is it? Do what thou wilt, right?
Yeah.
The will.
But they're already doing from ancient times. Aleister Crowley was asked to, not only was he given initially through doing it in his Pasadena mansion, the invocations that eventually he caught the eye of the phenomena, and the phenomena gave him the coordinates. These are the coordinates, and out in the Mojave Desert, this is where you need to go, this is where you need to do it. But we want some blood, thank you very much. So he had to take some samples of his own blood to submit. It's the intent of blood. Goes back a long, long, long time, ancient times. Even if you look at the Ark of the Covenant, and you look at the scriptures of the Ark of the Covenant, between the two cherubs, you've got the mercy seat. And how did they invoke? What was the process? Well, they used a high priest, some of which had only certain types of blood, of course, interestingly enough, to invoke God, to manifest on the mercy seat. But to do that, they had to sprinkle 7 drops of ox blood onto the mercy seat as this invocational practice. It's the intent of blood. It's everywhere. Even if you just look through our own Bible, it's like God had his bad days. He wanted to smite people. You had to sacrifice your son to him. It's no different than any other deity all over the world. No different. They all want the same. It's all the same thing. It all wants the same stuff. But it is rewarding if you take the need to it. If you want to be achieving, if you want to do this. And this is why NASA have got secret launches all the time on ceremonial days using people in high power sometimes to do things during this ceremony at the time of the launch, which is they've got sigilization on the rockets. And just as Diana Pusalka, she's right when she said, but why have them on him? Who are they for? And so all she was told is, well, it's for them. She said, well, them? Who's them? And their reply was, the sponsors. Mm-hmm. The ones that helped us get to space. And boy, didn't they? Because, we've released information now through hundreds of years of research through not just rocket science, but all sorts of different things, where the information has been given to individuals to advance human society. And they're gifted. And sometimes physical things are gifted. They're referred to in high circles as gifting fields. Mm-hmm. They give us technology, purposely, because they want to advance us. But the problem is that we're not advancing spiritually or consciously enough. We're superseding in technology. And we're going to end up like them, because even they make silly mistakes, because it's just this technology. It's everything about the technology. It's not necessarily mean super advanced beings operating super advanced technology. I think the technology supersedes, and this is where we are. This is what's happening. And it's crazy because everything is about weaponizing. Everything is, and then what their argument is, I kind of get it to some degree. Well, if we don't, the enemy will. So we've got to do it. It's the old Oppenheimer atomic bomb situation.
It's AI right now.
It's AI. Absolutely. This is it. And now what they're saying is, here's the big concern, Sean. What they're saying up at the top levels now is AI will allow regularity in NHI to formulate itself on planet Earth as we are. In other words, AI is going to allow that. It's like an open cockpit for them. There are some very big concerns. It's not going to stop. It's never going to stop. It's going to keep going on. They are going to achieve what they want to achieve. We know about the CERN experiments. We know about the dimensions now, which are up to 11, and CERN's pushing to 18 now, It's some crazy, crazy stuff that's going on. But it's all about reward and what they can get out of it and weaponizing it and getting ahead of somebody else that might be doing it. And yeah, they are doing it. So no one's ever going to take the foot off the pedal. This is the problem now, you see. So it's an ongoing problem, which is just going to escalate. So we've got to kind of try and get on board about this, because the times are showing that the method of paying homage to this phenomenon it recognizes and can reward. It's been going on since ancient days. It's happening even in current times now, but it's starting to seep out. People are starting to recognize, what's going on here and what is the reason before it. There was nothing in it. They would never do it. But, oh no, there is definitely something in it, And the people at the hierarchy kind of realize, right, there are people which aren't part of our legacy programs, which are independent, and they know. So what are we going to do about it? How are we going to control it? Well, the problem is they're losing control. And this information is going to come out, including specialists working in quantum mechanics and quantum imaging. There is stuff all around us that we are unaware of because we can't see it. But through quantum imaging, there are huge structures, geological structures in the sky and all around us. But we wouldn't know they were there. But it is. It's there. Because we've only been ever thinking about designing things to look within the reality we live in. Not to look and peer through the veil outside the reality we understand.
Yeah,
and now we're doing it.
Structures all around us. Say more about that. Like, what are they composed of? Are they just slightly out of phase?
No, these are physical. Some of them are huge. They're very specific about how they're created. Cubes, very large structures, all around. We wouldn't know their existence if it wasn't for quantum imaging. It's looking things outside our space and time. And now we start to see these things. And now we start to, hang on a second, what the hell is that? Then a number of series of tests can be carried out to see, is it intelligent? Does it interact? Oh, yes, it does. These things are intelligent and they do interact with the individual. We wouldn't even know they were there. We wouldn't even know. Right here. We would not know. No idea until we start to apply the specialized equipment, these tests. And then you start to see for what it really is. And it is shocking. It really is. And that's just one pill to try and swallow, let alone how UFOs and the paranormal and cryptids and all sorts of things are in on that mechanism. Because the mechanism is like a computer program. It's deliverable in many, many different ways. And that involves the most profound and strange things all these things, they all tie into it. It's been going on forever. But it's all part of it, and it shows its face, and it interacts with us. Sometimes it'll even change. If you want to change history, it'll change history. They've even, they've obliged themselves to help alter history in the past. So these huge geophysical objects are all over the place. And we start to look, how far does this go? This mechanism. And it's everywhere. Even the deep space. We just don't know. How far does that go? I do not know. We're still learning. But one thing is for sure, it's everywhere. It's just the predecessor to everything before reality we even see it. Before you just looking at me between, from screen to screen, between your face and my face on this screen, there are layers. Multiple layers of things we are not aware of.
So when you say geophysical structures that we just can't see, you're not talking about like they're in the infrared spectrum or the ultraviolet spectrum we can't see. They're in like a different phase of reality. Try to explain that, because you said they're all around us.
In a sense, yes, it's outside the boundaries of reality as we know it. Reality that we perceive. Yes, there are areas of a visual spectrums within that. We know that from ultraviolet, infrared, and all these different technologies, but it's not that. It is well beyond that. It's outside of all that. So with the specialized equipment, it's designed to look outside through that veil, not areas of the veil that is difficult to see, but literally outside it. And we're seeing it. In fact, it's even being recorded.
What kind of equipment would you need to do something like that?
Quantum imaging. It's special. It's very, very specialized stuff. In fact, no, I can't tell you that, but there are 3-letter agencies using some of this stuff, and have been for a while. But now it's in the public domain, and there are specialists which have been utilized for these certain people, but in the public domain.
But there's also specialists out there who... Which are not part of that, so... But claim to be part of it. Like I mean, I'm going to try to... You'll probably know exactly who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to mention any names. And this is just my theory, but there are people out there who claim to be quantum imaging experts, but their whole purpose appears to be to clown the concept, like to make the concept seem like it's crazy, because they might be crazy, right? And then the intelligence community just uses them to discredit quantum
Yeah.
imaging. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, do
Yeah.
you know who I'm talking about? Don't say.
I
You know
do.
who I'm talking
I
about.
know who you're talking. Yeah.
Look, the reason I bring this is because someone associated with this person was trying to get a hold of me, because what happens is when this group is kind of unleashed on somebody, they give them calls in the middle of the night, they ask for money, they do all sorts of like
I know. Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Of course,
I mean, let me give you a little brief example here. Trey Hudson from the Meadow Project. It was just released a documentary. There was aspects of this where some of this stuff was used to identify a cube which appeared in the quantum realm, not in our sense of reality to be there, but it is. It's there. It was.
Is this kind of like Hugh Everett's many worlds theory, basically?
Yeah, it's a little. Yeah, it's there, but it's part of the. It was linked in with the NHI stuff that's going on, and it was a construct that took place during, some type of experience that was happening at that time, which was being documented. It was only because of this, the quantum imaging and the research there, that showed this for what it was. And that's just one aspect of it, but these things are plentiful. We just didn't know they existed. That's the thing. Now we're not looking at that. You're looking at that now. You're thinking, what the hell is this? And that's part of that matrix. It's part of something that's been going on for a very, very long time, which we wouldn't have been alluded to be honest with you, if it wasn't for specialized technologies now. And those specialized technologies are allowing us to look beyond the veil. And I tell you what, once you start doing that, it is absolutely shocking. And it's not for everybody, I admit, but it is shocking nonetheless. And
we're not just talking one layer, we're talking multiple layers.
It's like looking through, as it was described to me, layers of glass. And there's things, different layers to different things. So on this layer, this exists. On that layer, that exists. And I've had specialists look at stuff of mine. And it is shocking. It is absolutely shocking. I didn't know these things were around. And specifically tied to certain things as well, which I've been involved in regarding these investigations that we've been doing. So, yeah, sometimes there's markers left, and this is why this is their mechanism, not ours, it's theirs. This is how they do what they do. We talk about string theory and we talk about waveform collapse and all these sort of things and stuff, but it's just the outside edges of this. When we start to get past that, it is quite shocking. And from what I have been told, that is one of the biggest secrets, is that mechanism. Beyond anything, beyond your UFOs, because UFOs part of it, to be honest, but beyond everything. We're just focusing on one small aspect here, but there are people and governments around the world that know this, and they'd rather work with it. It's more advantageous to work with it, than against it, because you never want to go against it. I mean, there's nothing worse than the wrath of God. Mm-hmm. The best way I could put it. I mean, simply, what can you do? We live in this world created by this thing. How are we going to get a foothold of this? We're not going to gain any advantage. We're always going to be puppets on the string. So do we realise, okay, well, it's best to take the knee to it and work with it, and it will be helpful and advantageous. So let's just go by the plan. Let's do what we're doing because we're guided by what they want us to do. When people say to me, Steve, this phenomenon could be an end tomorrow. It could simply just come and land on the White House lawn. I said, well, they don't need to, because they're already in there. They know exactly what's going on, through the eyes of man, through embodiment, even the influence, the old whisper in the ear to drive you one direction to another. You can be doing stuff in favour for NHI. You don't even know why you're doing it. So we can't beat that. We can't defend ourselves against that. So this is why people have learned to take the knee. And this is why since ancient times, all these specialized establishments are sometimes utilizing occultism, because occultism is part of this. It's in the invocation and intent practice. There are multiple ways of opening that door to NHI. Multiple ways. And this is why you've got even people coming forward now, which are whistleblowers, that are utilizing Enochian language, angel language. You know, it's the same thing, just a different method. You know, it's what you see, empowerment and the intent and communication with NHI, and people are obtaining data. Look at Tim Taylor. Not only is he a Dragon launch specialist for NASA on specific programs that are launched into space, secretively mostly, but he's in communication. You know, he's one that drives it. And this is why he has an invested interest in Chris Bledsoe and many others. And he's got his fingers in all these different pies. But if you really wanted to do the check-in, you look what he's responsible for in regarding NASDAQ and selling of multiple $1 million of technology and where that technology is coming from. This is the world we live in, you know. And now it's starting to get out of the hands of the US government into privateers, you know, people which have specialized establishments, organizations, defense contractors. They're starting to do their own stuff outside because they're starting to realize about, oh, well, why do you only have contact with NHI? You know, we can do that as well. And it can be profiteering and it can be beneficial for us as well. So they do the same thing as well. You know, talk about Skywatcher, for an example. Everybody's talking about Skywatcher at the moment. In fact, Psionic Circle's been going on.
That seems like an op to me, to be honest.
It is. Of course it is. Right. You know, but they say that they're using a dog whistle. They're making a big thing out of the dog whistle. They're just using 1.6 to 1.8 RF frequency. That's all they're using. It's the same old story. But the thing is, when it comes to these type of frequencies and stuff, is that RF frequencies causes problems with the manifestation process, of course, but it also entices them. Yes, it does entice phenomena. We know that. But it's not really bringing them down. It's like more of an enticement. You know, it's like baiting the fish pond, you know. But at the end of the day, they're always interested. But it's made out to be a little bit more than what it is, of course, you know. But this stuff's not new. It's been going on for a long, long time, psionics. You know, it was right back to the SRI days, you know, the Stanford Research Institute. They were involved in psionics just as much as anything else, you know. Of course, it was needed because Hal Puthoff needed that to be able to branch forward and do so well in Scientology. No wonder he was an O-level 7 or something. You know, it was ridiculous. $500,000 spent to get there. But you have to demonstrate, physically demonstrate, manipulation of time, manipulation of space, manipulation of energy, all sorts of things, which he was utilizing through the SRI program. So he went in-house to the CIA, you know, but that's just one of many, many things that have been going on all over the world in different countries, all doing the same thing. They all want a piece of the pie, and there are different ways of getting it, you know. But to the average Joe Blogs on the street, they just want to, you know, just live in the matrix. Don't ask any questions. Keep your head down. But as soon as you start to sort of ask too many questions and things, you're going to catch the eye. The phenomena can catch your eye. And sometimes it doesn't mind certain things out because it wants certain things out. But at its own pace and what it wants. You start going against the grain a little bit, you're going to start having little problems, and there's no way around it. So you really do have to tread that path fairly carefully. It's not for everybody. And this is why so many bend the knee to it and work within the program rather than around it, you know, because it's very beneficial for them. But at the same time, so much good could be used when in fact it's mostly just used for weaponizing and financial gain, to be honest with you, power. Which is a shame, but it is.
When you say there's certain bloodlines, you didn't use quite that language, but
yeah,
different blood is more favorable, less favorable based on the person. What research have you seen with that? And the reason I ask is, I mean, one could argue with, you know, royalty. I've heard it said that even royal bloodlines have slightly more copper in their blood than others. But is there something to that, or is that?
No, there's definitely something to it. I mean, they've been messing about regarding various different type of blood groups. I mean, it goes back into ancient times. Even there were about 4 or 5 different types of priesthoods which were being utilised for dealing with the Ark of the Covenant. Some of them were actually problems with radiation, electrical arcing, even killing those that operated it was not a good thing. So they actually believed there was a certain blood group who priests were allowed to physically manipulate the Ark, and they wanted it so badly that they actually made sure that the bloodline was kept, that you weren't allowed to have, go off with this particular woman. You've got to have the same blood group, and this, that, the children's got to be the same blood group, and so on. That went on for a very long time. But it does intrude into the Egyptian cosmology of the bloodline and pharaohs, high priests, kings. It is more about the bloodline, really, and dealing with phenomena, just as Solomon did, and the jinn. Mm-hmm. In fact, you don't get to hear about how Sheba from Egypt was associated with Solomon, and they had a relationship, and of course they were working on stuff together. But the cosmology of Egyptian cosmology goes right back. Egyptian cosmology, it's right even into Chris Bledsoe's experiences. It's symbolistic of the cosmology, or Egyptian cosmology and feminine divine. It's the same thing that Parsons was trying to do and Crowley were trying to do, and it's
the Babylon working.
The Babylon workings, yeah. It's all there. But the thing is, these things do work. If you're happy to put intent into it, and if you do, you're going to catch the eye, and it can be rewarding, but they always want to bring change. Crowley wanted to bring change through the workings of the Book of Law, which was information passed to him from Iowas, which really was Lamb. It's an entity. And they wanted everybody to bend the knee and do this and do that. And of course, Phenomenon always wants that. It will reward that, for that. And this is why so many, why it always looks dark and occultist, because it's got that in there, it's that intent. And this is why all these different practices, numerous different Babylonian, Sumerian, ancient Greek, and angel speak, all sorts of different things can be utilized to that path. And they have to give them reward through recognition, through symbolization. The symbols aren't just pieces of paper with things wrote on them. There's power and intent to these things, especially if you put your soul into these things. You need to become what you might refer to as activated symbolism. So there's definitely something to it, because this is why they keep doing it. And they're successful. Don't get me wrong. They are successful. So they're kind of watched over that things are going to work well for them, and it can be wealthy, prosperous, and as long as you bend the knee to it, and accept the fact that it's also got you there, in a sense of speaking, and still are, even to today, the stuff that we're getting from gifting. And of course, there's information that goes out to the general public, which is ruse. This phenomenon is very terrestrial based, and we start saying, oh, well, these things have got 4% isotopic differential. Why did they put that in there? To make sure people will believe it's extraterrestrial in nature. But it isn't. The actual research on the papers shows that it's all terrestrial based stuff. In fact, aluminium is used a lot. There's aluminium's all over the world, aluminum. So it's from the surface down to 25 miles all over planet Earth. But what's interesting is that most of the metamaterials of constructed principal material is aluminum. It's not something you just dig up. It's industrialized aluminum. So it's like purities of 98, 99%. And the only way to get that is through industrialization, is through manufacture. But not using stuff which is not found on planet Earth. It's all found on planet Earth. This is the materials that they're using, There's very strong geological connections to this phenomena in a physical sense, But we've got to always consider it's metaphysical. You know, they have the capabilities of just switching from something which is apparitional to not apparitional to physical, to be passed through solid items, to manipulate the reality around us. People going down the street and all of a sudden, it's a busy street. There's always cars there. There's always people. All of a sudden, you see this craft, there's nobody around. Where's all the cars gone? Where's all the vehicles? Where's the people? This is a bit weird. I'm seeing this huge craft in the sky, but this is a busy main road on a Saturday afternoon. Where is everybody? You know, just took you out of reality, just manipulated reality around you for these Oz-type experiences. You know, there are so many of these things. I was talking to a gentleman from Brazil only about a week or two ago, and he had this experience on this road, and he said, I do not want to go back on that road, because he felt like something, they hadn't finished with what he was doing. And he tried his best on 2 occasions not to be on that road, and he just couldn't help it. For some reason, he ended up on that road, and he just could not get off the damn thing. And he you know, they got what they wanted eventually at the experience. But the thing is that it's like reality's shifted. You can't get out of it if they really want to do that and go that far. So we know manipulating reality around even people who are having experiences is just profound. It doesn't make sense, because they can control the reality as well. It's not just an external phenomenon, it's internal as well for the mechanism of the matrix. So it's, you know, it starts to get very complicated. You can imagine.
If they can change the timeline, how would we perceive that change? Or do we just not at all? But then if we don't perceive it, how do we know they changed the timeline?
Well, it's very difficult sometimes, because sometimes you might not have any recollection whatsoever. If you look back to not skull experiment, but advanced skull experiment took place in Scotland, and I'd met these people, I knew what they were like. There were incidents where the whole team during these sessions were bilocated to the other side of the room. And not only that, the chairs they were sat on and the table were in between them. And you just switched on, and eventually they realised, what we're doing on the other side of the room, how did we even get here? You know, I mean, it was just absolutely crazy, the stuff that was going on. The items were, and there was a table that was spanned so fast, there was nobody in touch with it. This is not idiomotor stuff where you've got fingers on the table and you might be accidentally moving it. No, this was not in physical contact with anybody. And the damn thing started tipped up onto one leg and span so fast, it was a blur. In fact, it was so worrying and terrifying, because if you came into that contact with a table, it could take your head off. It was spinning that fast. Yeah, the stuff absorbed into the walls. You know, there was flowers that fell from the ceiling, but some of them still got trapped halfway into the ceiling. You could see half of them stuck out the ceiling still. You know, parts of furniture were still morphed into the wall, just like looking at a scene out of, you know, the Philadelphia experiment where people allegedly got morphed to this. You know, it's just, it is ridiculous, you know, about reality, and I think how pliable it is for phenomena. During the actual skull experiment, started off before seeing UFOs flying around the room. It's only a 12-foot by 10 cellar. Was the cosmos? They saw the cosmos and it was like it was as if you were looking at a 3D image, to the point where it just looked so real. And not only that, it actually descended from the ceiling down in front of the people and started to move around them. They could see stars and planets. And then out from the corners of the cosmos, bright lights came forward. So it manifested as small flying saucer type crafts, which didn't look like models, they looked like flying saucers, and he interacted with people. People touched them, people, you know. And you think to yourself, that's just, your whole world of reality is just gone. You know, because it's all controllable by phenomena. When you start to realize that, bilocating people, sometimes they may not even know. It's as if something's come along and just press pause, and you know, and then you go about, move, you do this, do whatever, and then play. And you don't, none the wiser, you think, what the hell has just happened? You know, what's happening to these people that are driving down these roads, which are really busy? You see strange craft in the sky, they look around, and there's no cars, there's no people. Where have they gone? Because that, in realism, in the reality we know, it's a Saturday afternoon, it's 3 p.m. roughly. That road is always busy. Every Saturday afternoon. But where were them people? at the time of that incident. As far as they're aware, they're on that road. But something shifted in reality, and reality's got these layers, and I think you're just taken and, and I think this is how they can manipulate. They can say, well, okay, let's just take you out your environment, put you there, and then we can do what we want and we can put you back. This seems to be the case, It's just so profound. So in some cases, people are oblivious to change. But what specialists are telling me, astrophysicists and other specialists, quantum mechanics specialists, they're theorizing that we might not be aware of these little hiccups of change in our reality, which they could be applying any time they want if we can't remember it. But what the result of that is multiple serendipitous, strange coincidences. It's like the mechanisms there, and you recognize something when you're trying to figure it out. That is so strange. What is that? And like I said to you before, Sean, people may just say to me, oh, it's one of those things. Yeah, but what is that? What is one of those things? You could write a whole book on it's one of those things. It gets to a point where you think to yourself, no, what is that? There's got to be something. And is it part and parcel of the recognition and that there's some little glitch that's happened in your life? I already know that through NHI communications that they've told me where I'm going to be to the day 19 months later, not even in the same country, doing a different thing. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no desire to be in that country. What the hell are they talking about? Until it happens. 3 times in my life, they communicated this, and I can't avoid it. This is why I argue, do we actually have free will? Maybe to a point, but I even got rebellious. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to mess it up. It's like going out of your gate and taking a left instead of a right. I am going to mess it up. It's not going to work. Always worked. They always knew where I was going to be in the future. All 3 of them.
How did they communicate that to you?
Verbally. Direct voice phenomena through sessions in 2014 to 2017. Crazy. And they come out the corner of the room. So usually it's strange actually, because they always seem to be up there somewhere. And it's, if you were to hear it, it's like having a peg on the nose. It's like not male, not female, but you can't really put your finger on it. Is it male or is it female in it? But there's no like real vocal cords being used here when we record these sessions and analyze them. They're not coming back as vocals, human vocals. And when we're listening to them and they communicate this stuff, you're thinking to yourself, it's quite fascinating. It's very difficult because sometimes you have the urge through excitement to come back and do it again and again and again. Let's do it more and more and more. Because it's exciting. You don't know what it's going to I mean, I have never experienced stuff like as the skull to that degree, but we have had manifestation of figures. We've had manifestations of light phenomena. We've had items move around on the table. We've had items move by request by them. Can you do this? And they'll do it. They've relayed information to us from information which is so profound. It's like they've tapped into an Akashic record. It took us about 6 weeks to confirm they were right because it was that vague. And the 6 weeks of research, that's using the internet, of course, the power of the internet, still took us 6 weeks to confirm they were right. And they were right. But they just, it's this, it's this, it's this. It's like they tapped into, how did he know all that? And it is pretty amazing. But the problem is by going back to the table so often, there's a downside to it. Too much of a good thing causes hitchhiker. And this is why we ended up taking it back home. We had to rule out protocols then. We're going to have to slow these experiments down. Otherwise, we're going to get under your skin a little, so... And you don't really want to do that. You want to do it as much as you can because it's exciting, but at the same time, safety protocols have to come in because it does get under your skin and all hell can break loose. The worst of it is misfortune. Mm-hmm. And it's like you've just been cursed. That's the only way I can describe it.
Does it do that in a capricious way, or is it you know what you did and it is just punishing you?
No, I think it's just in a capricious way sometimes. I think that we just didn't know at first. What the hell is happening? I go out, the car won't work properly, the fridge breaks down, the washing machine starts playing up, family member dies, the dog gets run over. What? All these things. And you just think to yourself, am I cursed? What the hell is going on? And then you start to realise when you talk to other people that are part of that program, it's happening to me. It's happening to me. What are we doing? Why is it doing this? I ain't got the answer. I don't know why it does that, but it likes to. It gets under your skin, gets hooked into your skin, it's hitchhiking, it's taking you back home. And it doesn't just affect you, it affects your family members, your life, everything. You know, and it can be disastrous. It can be really terrible. But you do know it. You'll recognise it because you just think, no other time in my life could anything go wrong like this, sequentially, over and over again, until you realise what you've done, and then you dial it back. And when you do, it starts to subside. So there is and I don't know why they do that, to be honest with you. And we've tried to ask, and they've never really given any information about why it happens, but it does. And it just seems to I think it's like overindulgence. Mm-hmm. If you overindulge yourself too much, there's a little bit of a sting in the tail sometimes. So you've got to be careful not to do too much. And of course, some people don't do protocols. They never worked with protocols when Bigelow was at Sherman Ranch, and that's why he had so many problems. The protocols that are supposed to be applied in Brazil, there isn't any. You know, and this is why the worst stuff happens in Brazil, because they just keep going for it with no protocols at all. And I even talk to people that have been involved in this stuff, and I say, look, do you know what? You've got to rule and protocols. What the hell are you doing? You're risking your life. Oh, nobody, it's this, that, and this. And I just think to myself, no wonder they have so many things in Brazil and places like that, because they just don't believe in protocols or safety measures, to be honest with you. It's just silly, you know, it really is, especially when you not know what you're dealing with, to be honest.
Why are they so interested in Chris Bledsoe? Like, what is that the same? Like the lady, is that the same phenomenon at Lourdes and Fatima and?
Well, the lady was never seen at Lourdes. I mean, Saint Bernadette. Well, she wasn't a saint then; she's now. But of course, back then in her own diary, because people said, "Steve, how do you know this?" I said, "Well, all you got to do is read the diary. It's there. She wrote it,
right?
That thing. I mean, now don't get me wrong. I mean, Bernadette would have known what Virgin Mary looks like for sure. And actually, you know, she would have loved to have that to have been. But the fact is, though, she didn't recognise it as that. She recognised it as non-human, and it was that thing. That's the only way she could describe it. She even complained to the church and said, look, I didn't see that. But they did their own spin on it, and actually have done for many years with different events. But they define the feminine, you know, the goddess, the Babylon workings. It's all part of that. It's symbolism. Because there's one thing that this phenomena does, and it cannot get away from it, which is quite comical in times, is that the symbolism, they just had to keep using the damn symbolism. You know, I was lying on the floor and then there was this bull over the top of it. Really? Okay, that's interesting. Let's get to Egyptian cosmology here. You know, footprints right back there, amongst others. You know, and then, you know, I mean, with the bull, you've got Moloch, the worship of Moloch, and we know a bit about that through other practices that have been taking place. And in fact, it was interesting.
Is that cult real? Like
yes, that cult is real, absolutely real, and goes back a long time. Moloch is actually the most sacrificial deity has ever been listed, to be honest with you. But it's been going on a long time. But it's the biggest rewards from it. The more you sacrifice, the more you reward. You know,
is that behind a lot of those in control? Are they associated with?
Well, they've loosened it.
Offshoot.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of an off. It's still the footprint's there, but it's a little bit more lighter now. Instead of throwing, I won't get into that because not for YouTube, but they're throwing dolls on there now, you know, and it's the symbolism, it's the intent, you know, so it's still carried forward without it actually being so bad. But you go back into ancient times, it was bad, very bad, and it was consistent. High rewards, though, of course, but that's the problem with it, you know, it's equal to what you sacrifice. This is why even our own God, if you actually read the Bible, he calls for the sacrifice of people to him or it, you know, no different than any other deity around the world, and doing the same thing, even if it's the Aztecs, the Incas, the Mayans, whatever, you know, and others all over the world, and even into paganism. So it's, you know, that's always been the footprint of this stuff, you know, got to prove yourself, give yourself, you know, and do things that you really wouldn't want to do, but the reward is great. And that's why sigilization in the space program and other things, and secretly hidden within Freemasonry, which is the same thing, is being utilized so much because it's rewarding, you see. And through, I mean, they all had their own ways of doing it. In Freemasonry, it was through symbolism, architectural symbolism. It's the same thing. It's just symbolism, you know, if it's through architectural or not. But it's everywhere. And it still is going on even now. Very secretively, though. Societies, government levels, establishments, organizations. It does go on. And not just in the Western world, it goes on outside the Western world into China and Russia and all these other places. Hey, don't get me wrong, Russia well ahead in biosciences, in regarding psi phenomena and stuff like that, well ahead. You know, China are pretty on the ball as well, so, and many other countries. So, I mean, it's something that's kept quiet and utilised, but at the same time, not really for the general public, but the general public kind of pick up little bits and bobs. He's just trying to paint a picture to say, well, you know what, here's all the stuff, I throw it all out on the table, you make your own mind up. At least it's on the table, not buried underneath it, because people should know this stuff. It's everywhere, you know, seeped into our history, everything.
Well, let's stop right here, and then in the next episode, we'll talk about what's to come in the next year to 24 months. But any final words for the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, I think what we start to really need to understand is don't focus so much on UFOs. I mean, UFOs are UFOs. They're always going to be around, okay? People say, oh, you know, Skywatcher, they've got 9 different objects. No, 9 different objects. 1977, Blue Book listed over 10 million variations in UFOs. There is no base model. Let's just get to that point. They create whatever they want to, any shape, any size, you name it. You know, it's look deeper than that. You know, how are they doing what they do? How can they just disappear from sight? Phase out, phase in. You know, this is a problem. We've got more UFOs traveling around planet Earth than anything is passing through the ionosphere. What's that tell us? Tell us it's terrestrial based. You know, they're not coming from all these other planets. There is many ruses out there, you know, oh, well, we've got to believe in this and we've got to believe that these UFOs are into other planets and they may be traveling towards us and this, that, and the other. Even at the 3-Eye Atlas, which it's highly debated, as time's going on, it's getting less and less interesting, you know, but it's the way it is. It's the way the world is. But no, it's just to look deeper into the mechanism. And when you start doing that and looking back in time, you start to realise there's been a long, close association with the supernatural and the occult and the bringing on of NHI and the manifestation of these crafts and other things. It's all from all over the world, and they've all been at it for a long time. So I'd say let's start to look a bit, rather than looking so much out there, reel it back. Let's look at some of the stuff, because it goes back a long, long way into the past, right up to current times, even to NASA utilizing these sigilizations and homage and things to get what they want out of it, and people in high places dealing with that, and it's getting out. Information is getting out. So I'd say look into those sort of things, as opposed from, don't get too wrapped up in the stories that are generated through the internet, because you will lose yourself and never go. You'll just be on a merry-go-round, going around and around and around. Oh, another UAP hearing, fantastic. We're going to get something this time. Round and round we go. It will never get anywhere, because it's not happening there. It's happening behind there, you know. So, but that's the best thing I can probably say, to be honest, at this moment in time.
All right. Well, look forward to talking about what's coming
Thanks,
in the
Sean.
next episode. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's video, please hit like and subscribe, and also hit the notification button so you can be notified whenever I post new content. Thank you. Now, if you're enjoying the channel and you want to support it, there are several things you can do. In fact, there are 5 things you can do. The first thing you can do is just buy my books. I got plenty of books out in the market right now, and I would prefer that folks buy a book rather than giving me direct support, because they get something out of it. They get a real tangible product. The second way you can support me is by becoming a member on YouTube or becoming a patron on Patreon. And just go to either site and it'll explain everything. third way you can support the channel is by checking out my merch site, which is here. There's plenty of stuff that you can get to support the channel. And I'd appreciate that you have it and can wear it. Not only do you help support the channel, but you also help promote the channel, and I appreciate that. The fourth way that you can support the channel, and this is really easy, is anytime you want to buy something on Amazon, literally just go to the description below and click on any link, literally any link. The channel gets a cut of that, and it costs you no extra money. You just go through the link, as I'm part of the Amazon Affiliates Club. The fifth and final way you can support the channel is through donations. Now, I don't prefer these because it's more of an expression of gratitude, but you don't really get anything out of it as a subscriber to the channel. However, if you decide to do these options, there's two options. There's Buy Me a Coffee, which is a separate site. And there's also, you can go through YouTube with either a super chat, super sticker, or a super thanks. Again, I prefer Buy Me a Coffee because that organization takes less money than Amazon does. But either way, I appreciate any support you are willing to give the channel. So thank you very much and keep watching. I really appreciate it.